welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloney, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership with TEPSA. Each week, I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and allow them to come on and share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to tell some of yours. I am thrilled this week to have my special guest, Davide Di Giorgio, on with me today. And David, go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Hey, Todd, thanks so much for having me on. So Davide Di Giorgio, who am I? I am born of immigrant parents, originally a Canadian. I am originally a composer and a musical director. I did that for many years. I had a theater production company in Toronto. While I did that, I also decided I wanted to do good in the world, and I became a head of a high school music department. And while I was doing that and pitching television shows to networks and stuff like that at the same time and doing shows, I also opened up a yoga studio. So I like to joke that I have this weird combination of performance and production, education, and personal development all rolled into one. Eventually, I moved to the US.
Variety going on there.
Yes, I do, right? And eventually I moved to the US. I now live in San Diego, and I am a speaker, an author, and I especially have a big mission with young people. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. So
Awesome. So talk to me a little about, growing up, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I had no idea. Look, I'm the child of immigrant parents, so the options were limited. I could be an accountant, a doctor, or a lawyer, maybe an engineer. My older brother took accountant, so I couldn't take that. And my parents didn't think I was smart enough to be a doctor. So they were pretty sure I was going to become a lawyer. So you can imagine the shock when I told them I was going to go to school for music.
Uh-huh. And so, that led to you eventually jumping into the theater department at school. When did that drive to be a part of education happen?
So eventually my parents kind of said, maybe you should be a teacher. I mean, you seem to be really good with young people, so why don't you become a teacher? And I was absolutely against it. And I started to realize through my 20s that I had more and more opportunities. I worked for a group of doctors who scuba dive around the world in tropical locations, and I basically set up kids' experiences, activities for the children of these doctors. And so I got to do that in some amazing Cayman Islands and Roatan, Honduras, and Mexico. And so I've always had great relationship with young people. And after trying out all sorts of things, let me put it this way, I found out what I didn't want to do. And I'm talking everything. Like I worked at hotels, resorts. I worked for Club Med. I worked for an airline. I was a flight attendant for some time. And all while I was doing the theater. And I finally decided, I'm like, maybe I should check out this teaching thing. And so I went and got my credentials, and I was very lucky. I landed a dream job in my town that I lived in, a few minutes away from where I lived, as head of a department, and it was awesome.
Doing all those different kind of little career paths and all those little different experiences, I'm sure that taught you a lot about yourself. What's one of the lessons you really learned from, playing with all those different things and deciding what you wanted to do?
I think this is what I really stand for as a teacher, and what I really love to encourage young people to do also is to, especially the younger you are, is to try everything. So my teaching partner and I at my school, we actually almost came up with a t-shirt that said, the answer is yes. And then we realized that in a high school, that could be a bit of a dangerous situation. So then we were going to do the answer is yes and sometimes no. But really, it was just this yes attitude. I always said yes. I always knew that there would be a way. I mean, I got this job in the Cayman Islands because I saw a post back in the day, right, in some chat room thing where it was just oh, we're looking for someone to come down and manage this group of kids. And I thought I could do that. And literally, within a couple of weeks, I was getting fingerprinted and all sorts of crazy stuff. I just never thought that it was not possible. And I think what I learned about myself is that I can do just about anything, but I also learned along the way that so can everybody else.
Right.
And I think that's what made me a pretty powerful teacher in my time, because I just don't see any limitations for people. And if you want to do it, the only thing that's going to stop you is you.
Now, I think that's a great segue into you. You've also written a book. And so tell me a little bit about what that book's about and where that idea came from.
Being unapologetic. The book is about being unapologetic. Why? Because I am Canadian and we apologize for everything. And I think I finally got to the point in my life now in my 40s where I realized, what would it be like if I stopped apologizing for everything?
Uh-huh.
And instead, I owned my own power and I owned what I believed. Because what I started to do is look at all the world's greatest leaders, your favorite star, your favorite movie star, your favorite singer, all of those people. And I grew up Catholic, so from Jesus to Dolly Parton, I like to joke. You know, everyone in between, they had this unapologetic nature to them. And whether you like them or not, in the case of some world leaders, whether you like them or not, the fact of the matter is they believe a certain thing and they take a stand for something and they take a stand against something. And the stronger the stand they take, the more we talk about them for the long term.
Right.
And so really the book is this idea of sharing, of really uncovering who you are as a person and then developing who you are and then going out to deliver that to the world.
Now,
And seeing what happens.
do you still sometimes find yourself apologizing in some situations?
Of course.
So
Yeah,
how do
it's
you continue to
impossible.
work through that and kind of live your own message?
It's just a constant reminder. I always joke with people, I didn't write this book for you. I wrote this book for me to remind
Yep.
myself every day that, you know, I need to be unapologetic, because the more unapologetic that I can be, then the more I will achieve my goals. But here's the cool part about it. What I've learned is the more unapologetic people are, pick your favorite leaders, Beyonce, whoever it is. Look at how many people follow them and want to be like them.
Right.
And aspire to be better people because of those amazing world leaders in whatever area they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I realize is the more I become the example, the more other people want to be their own example.
Wow.
And so even though I kind of joke that, you know, the book is for me, really the book has to be for me because I have to show you what it looks like to be unapologetic so that you will dip your toe in, right? Just stick your toe in just to try it out a little bit, because it's scary for some people. And especially depending on what culture you're from, being unapologetic is not acceptable in a lot of
Right.
cultures outside of North America.
So,
In
I'm
some
sure
countries, you could be killed for being unapologetic, in fact.
exactly. And I'm sure though, as people have read this book, you've probably got some interesting stories or some great feedback. What's one of your favorite things that somebody that's responded to something from your book?
What I get in general are the people who just realize. My favorite comment came from a reviewer, and these reviewers generally review the kind of book that's not like mine. They might have, like, you know, shirtless men on the front with, like, you know, water splashing in their face. That's the kind of reviewers that were reviewing my book, and God bless them. And one of them said, I started to read this book and I was wondering, like, why is he telling me all these stories about him? And I wasn't sure I was going to keep reading it. And then I realized it wasn't about him at all. It was about me. And that is, to me, was the validation that is like, okay, we need to share our stories more, because the more you share your stories, the more other people see themselves. Because I truly believe that we're all the same.
Yeah.
You know, I used to tell my students as a high school teacher, first couple of days of class, I'm like, here's the good news. You're not special. And the even better news is you're just as special as everybody else. And I really believe that, because when you can see yourself in someone and when they can see them in you, that's when the real magic can happen. And I think you can only achieve that when you are fully being unapologetic, unmessable, totally who you are.
Well, I really heard that come through in your TEDx that was just released. And so talk to me a little bit about, I've done 2 TEDx's as well. One of the most traumatizing experiences of my life, because it was absolutely terrifying to be in that time limit and know that it was broadcast and recorded. I was so stressed beyond ever. But yours, I was really engaged in your TEDx, but the ending alone sealed it for me, where I was like, oh, okay, he just killed me. I'm never going to be able to outdo that. So talk to me a little bit about how that experience came about and what that was like for you.
So my TEDx journey was a long one. It was about 2 years in the making. And originally, when I moved to the US, I became known quite accidentally as someone who works with speakers. So one of my first clients, my second client in the US, was a guy that I helped develop his TEDx talk, and which did very well. And then from there, I became a speaker coach for multiple TEDx events and multiple TEDx speakers, and someone who went on to do a Goalcast talk that has like 1.5 million views and all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah. And so I never really wanted, I mean, I've always been the guy behind the curtain.
Uh-huh.
That's me, the producer, the director, the musical director, the teacher, whatever. I'm the guy behind the curtain. And in the last couple of years after I wrote the book, I realized the power of the TEDx stage and the power of that brand. And it was sort of like the TEDx talk for me is one of the final crown jewels in my sort of ecosystem because it is a global stage.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to apply and there were over 200 rejections.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to know that. and I kind of did it as an experiment because I want to be able to help the other people that I work with now. I coach influencers and celebrities on their talks and messages and stuff like that. And so I was okay with the failure. Finally, I built a relationship with Colorado Springs, which is where I did my event, and I got rejected for their spring event, but then I got a yes for their fall event, which just happened a few weeks ago, not even a month ago. And it was an amazing, amazing experience. Now, because I've performed my entire life, for me, it was the ultimate challenge. And it was stressful. I wouldn't say traumatizing, so I'm so sorry for your experience, but it was stressful just because I think there's a lot of pressure. Like a lot of people expect a lot of things. You know, the book went #1 in 8 countries and #2 in 2 others. And so, you know, it's like, okay, what am I going to say in 18 or less minutes?
Yeah.
That is going to be like people want to hear. But okay, so I am not normal. So I go all in. When I go all in, like, I mean, I go all in. So I've been working like 18 hours a day for the last 8 months.
Uh-huh.
I've put in thousands of hours into that talk.
Wow.
And, you know, when people really pay attention, and, you know, I think you can appreciate the fact, like, why were you engaged with the talk? Well, one, because I designed it to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
I turned around, I connected back every single dot in that talk to make sure that there was nothing left unsaid. And I didn't waste a second because I knew it was just radical editing. And I'd wake up every morning between 3 and 5 a.m. and start rehearsing the talk every day for months. And like I said, I'm not normal. I don't recommend this to most people. It's not great for relationships or for business. But I knew that I wanted to create a piece that was a legacy piece that would make an impact on people. And now, like, it's just the comments on the talk and the messages that I'm getting from professionals in the field, from nurse practitioners, from psychotherapists, psychologists who are telling me like how impactful it is for them and their clients it made it worth it.
That is so awesome. Well, it was fantastic, and I loved hearing my buddy Adam DeVico get a shout out in your TEDx as well. So bravo. And the ending, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. Go on, search for David's TED Talk and watch it because the ending alone is worth the watch. Well, you know, David, thinking about, you know, I know that this is a very big question, so I'm not looking for like 50 different answers. I know this is a big question, but when you think about your life leading up to this point, what is one of those experiences that you think really played a part into the man you are today?
Oof. Okay. There's a couple and they're quick. In 2009, after the second time that I read The Alchemist, I decided to move to the Arctic.
Wow.
Now, for anyone who's read The Alchemist, you will know that at no point in the book does it suggest you should move anywhere or go anywhere. So if you haven't read the book, you need to read the book and then think about David, who decided after closing that final page, after the second time I read the book, I'm moving to the Arctic. Okay. In the Arctic, I discovered, and this is something I share briefly in the TEDx talk, that I was the biggest problem in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is when I decided to finally come out to my parents. Mm-hmm. And when I came out to my parents, I was instantly disowned. And I have been disowned for the last 10 years. So that was very a shaping moment. A couple years after that, because I had a hole in my schedule and it opened up a yoga studio, which was the worst experience of my life. It's a story for another time. Things were going terribly, terribly wrong. And it was a struggle. The studio was a struggle. And every night before I went to bed in January, starting in January of 2011, I started to wish, what would it be like if I could start over again? And I forgot that you have to specify to the universe what you want. And so what I got was lightning that hit my house and burnt my house to the ground. And that was a very pivotal moment for me, because there was literally a moment where the 27 firefighters went home. State Farm, who was there with a check, handed me the check, and they left. And I was literally there at this shell of a home, which you can see the image in my TEDx talk also. And I had two options that went through my head. The basement was filled with water. And I literally thought, well, I could go into the basement, nobody's around, and that would just be the end.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could call a friend and move on with my life.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad part was I didn't know who to call. And so after a few minutes, actually it probably was more like half an hour, I finally figured out who I was going to call. My teaching partner. Teaching partners are the best. Like,
Yes.
Kathy, you saved my life. And for everyone's entertainment, Kathy is the person who is shaking her booty in the image in the TEDx talk. So there you go, find the Easter egg in the talk. And I called her and I said, hey, how's your day? And literally she started saying, oh my gosh, my mom fell and broke her shoulder and we're at the ER. And I'm hearing her say this. And I'm like, Kathy, my house burnt down today. And she just stopped. And she's like, oh my God, where are you? I said, I'm standing in front of the house. She's like, we're going to come get you right now. While her mom's like in the ER or whatever was going on. It was like, and so those were sort of the three pivotal moments that happened over a 2-year period where it really built up my unapologetic nature, my ability to be unmessable, what I call unmessable. And it really laid the foundation for everything else in my life.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
God, there's just so much there to digest and think about, and to look at how you've used those experiences that truly did you allow them to shape you instead of allowing them to destroy you. I think that's the really powerful moment in there, is that in every one of those examples, you could have used that moment as a destructive moment instead of a productive one. When you think about all the people that play a role in your life, and looking back over that, who is someone that you are really thankful played the role they did in your life?
So this is a story that's developing, one that I haven't shared. Actually, I just posted this on my social media that I'm about to share more of this, because it's sort of my why. Not sort of, it is my why and the reason behind the TEDx talk, and it puts all the pieces together. So in my history, also, while this was all happening after the fire, I have a failed adoption in my history. So I adopted a young man very close to it, and it didn't work out for all sorts of reasons, which I will share eventually with the world. Yeah. And we reconnected recently, and I said to him, he's 20 now. I said, I don't know why you're not mad at me. I don't know why you don't hate me, but I'm thankful that you're talking to me. And he said, how could I hate the person who gave me the best time of my life? Mm-hmm. And he's so wise, and he taught me so much in the time that we were together. And he continues to teach me. I call him sensei in training. And so we're rebuilding a relationship, and everything that I do is for him and other kids who experience like not feeling loved or wanted, or who are stuck in this system of foster care, or just for the people who don't feel like they fit in, right? And so yeah, Jesse is his name. Jesse, you're my special little guy. Everything that I'm doing now revolves around that legacy that I'm building that's attached to his story.
That's awesome. What's something you're working on now that you're really excited about?
Making money. Because you know how this goes, right? Like, we get so passionate, and I think it's really important, and especially as educators, we get so passionate about things, and there's a lot of lack mentality in the system, unfortunately, just because the way it's set up, right? And I had to shed that from the system and from being a teacher for so long, of now being more of on the entrepreneur side, is really being in an abundance mindset. And I have no problem declaring to the world, I'm going to be a gazillionaire, whatever that means, because I want to help a lot of people. And I know you know this, like the more people you want to help, the more money and funding and support you need.
Right.
And so I'm super excited about taking the idea of the TEDx talk, Overcoming Comparanoia, and taking this message around the world. And I've created this sort of network, global network that I've called the Unmomtourage, where I'm positioning these amazing human beings, moms and people who identify as moms, because I'm an unmom, totally, people who take care of other people, to really activate communities. And I want to help people build legacies in their communities. So I don't just go in and speak for an hour. I spend a few days there, and then I pass on the message and the legacy to those people. So I'm super excited about bringing that around the world. We're negotiating now in the UK, Australia, the Philippines, US, and Canada. So who else wants us to come and bring this message out there? We're available.
That is fantastic. That's so exciting. Well, David, you've got so much awesome stuff going on. You've shared tons of great stories. You know, one question I always love to end all my conversations on is, if there was one thing that you wish more people knew or understood, what would your one thing be?
Oh, that you are ready now. Like, how about now instead of later or when this? Like, as soon as you catch yourself saying, when I do this or when it's time, how about now? Like, you're ready now. You arrived in this world with gifts. You arrived as a miracle. You are ready now.
I love that. That's perfect. Well, David, I have loved following your journey on social media. Your TEDx is amazing. And when you agreed to come on, I was so thrilled to hear some more of your story. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing all that tonight. I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out all past episodes on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. They're there. If you want to take a few minutes and leave me a review on iTunes, I would greatly appreciate it. I hope this conversation today has inspired you and encouraged you the way it has me. And I hope that it encourages you to get out there and tell some of your story, because every story matters. Have a great night, everyone.